This is the Fictional Mindbender. So I'm finally going to address this because, like the last video I did on Eren and Historia, I needed time to get away from the attachment and the drama that tends to surround this particular point of view regarding the relationship between Jean and Mikasa, or Jean Casa, as many people like to say. I need to get a better perspective on it without my biases kicking in, because I'm going to say this flat out. I am a follower of the Eren Mikasa relationship because that makes much more sense to me. However, I'm honestly going to approach this idea of Jean Casa with as much of an open mind as possible. So here we go. Now, background a little bit. Shippers of this relationship are of this mind because the consensus seems to be that while Eren seems to barely show any interest in Mikasa beyond being a close friend, and only as a lover or potential lover in season 4, even then that not being till towards the end, Jean has been simping over her since literally day 1. And while Mikasa seemed to be a one note in terms of her relationship to Eren, there was much more room for her to grow with Jean because it wasn't so toxic. Essentially, that Mikasa's devotion to Eren was one-sided, sad because it was unrequited for so long, and hindering proper character development until season 4, when she has to now challenge that point of view, or I should say is forced to. And finally, that shippers of Jean Casa believe that she does eventually marry Jean because in one of the last panel shots by the tree where Eren was buried, it shows a dark-haired woman with what seemed to be a long-haired man with children. And they took this to mean that she had moved on with Jean. So, having said all that, I'm going to say this. I don't buy it. And not because of my bias. Here's why. One is that, like Eren's seemingly disinterest in her, Mikasa never shows any interest or inkling of romantic interest in Jean, outright ignoring him while they were cadets. And while she does come to see him as a friend and I think as a brother to Eren Yeager, it never evolves beyond that. And Mikasa wasn't stupid. I'm sure she was well aware of his feelings towards her. Compare that to Armin and Annie's relationship, where there are plenty of seeds being sown from day 1 that something could happen or should have happened between the two. But Jean and Mikasa is never reciprocated. It is always one-sided at all times. Secondly, is that Jean knows Mikasa but doesn't know her at the same time. Jean, even by season 4, still sees Mikasa as his ideal woman, the princess on a pedestal, the woman to make him happy, cook dinner, and give him kids and whatever. And this happens in real life as well, where one person will see the object of their desire in the light of that desire, but not who that person actually is. Jean knows that Mikasa can be fanatically devoted to Eren to the point of violence, as do the others. But he does not know nor understand the root of that, where it comes from, why she is like that. His upbringing was relatively normal up until he joined the Survey Corps. Mikasa's is loaded with extreme trauma and PTSD from the murder of her parents before her eyes, as well as killing those murderers alongside Eren, who pushed her to fight back. And this level of conviction in the midst of such darkness is something that Jean doesn't understand, even with the whole experience with fighting Titans. And that isn't his fault either, as Mikasa never opens up to him nor anyone else about it except Armin. And Eren was there for the whole thing already. Moreover, this particular event makes Mikasa a hyper-violent person, and you can see that when you compare Mikasa in her OVA version to the Mikasa in the main timeline. A much openly gentler, kinder, and loving person. But mainline Mikasa is someone who will not shy away from literal showers of blood, be they Titans or humans, if you dare get in her way. She's an introvert whom, if she doesn't know you, will ignore you or just probably be bitchy towards you. Most guys would see his behavior and swear off her no matter how hot she was. And while Jean is in her inner circle of friends whom she feels somewhat comfortable around and absolutely trusts with her life, enough to follow him when he's a leader, he's not close enough to where he can connect with her on that level, connect with that core part of her damaged personality. Even after the war is over, Mikasa has chosen not to nor ever let go of her love for Eren, even though Eren was the one who kind of pushed for this against his own wishes because he didn't want her to do that either. And this was probably even more so with her knowing that Eren did actually love her, but was prevented from that life because of forces outside of both of theirs controls. Which leads me to the third point, that no matter the timeline, Mikasa is always falling in love with Eren because of a mixture of her own choice, even if some of us don't like that, and 2, motivations from Ymir because of her own relationship to a monster, the king of Eldia, who had cut out her tongue and was responsible for the enslaving of her people and the creation of the Eldian race. Though I argue that Ymir's was easily worse than Mikasa's monster because Eren never wanted to be a monster, whereas the king just literally did not give a fuck. But basically, Eren and Mikasa are literally bound to each other beyond space and time, and good luck getting to that. Lastly, and more importantly though, is that, quite frankly, Jean deserves better. And yes, you heard me say that right, and I'm going to say it again. Jean deserves better. Hear me out. Even if I went along with Jean and Mikasa getting together at any point in time, he would always bend the cuck, the third wheel, the one outside looking in, because he will always know that he was never Mikasa's first choice. Now, simping as a teenager is acceptable and okay because it actually kind of makes some sense. But continuing to do so over the same person into adulthood with someone whom you see only as your ideal rather than the person they actually are borders on toxic. I mean, the woman is still going to his grave years later. What person continues to see their ex on a continual basis while in another relationship? Jean got so much great development in season 4 that him continuing to bark up the wrong tree would just drag him down. If anything, I saw him moving on with Peak at the end because, unlike Mikasa, there does seem to be some subtle cues that she might be into him, at least as far as I can tell. And it's not like it would have been a bad thing, given how many fans love that character and, let's just say, to certain degrees. But either way, a Jean-Mikasa relationship, in my opinion, would have been detrimental to Jean's character. It's not a matter of wanting them together or whatever, or that one deserves the other or that deserves better, or whatever the case might be. Even the scene I mentioned above about the tree and the old woman and the old man is deliberately left ambiguous for fans for them to make of it what they will, while at the same time showing them that it's not the point to the story of Attack on Titan. But having said all that, let me know what your thoughts are below. Just try to be civil. And this is the Fictional Mindbender. Have a good day.